Good morning and welcome to this AM Magazine webinar sponsored by CDK Global. I'm Tom Sharpe, News and Features Editor from AM Magazine, and it's great to have all the attendees that we can see embracing this opportunity to gain insight from the panel that we have open to you today. Clearly, over the last 10 months, the dealership experience has fragmented for both customers and retailers. The digital shortcomings of some dealerships have been laid bare, and many have been prompted to respond very urgently in order to be able to offer those click and collect and click and deliver services which have maintained a level of operational efficiency and allowed retailers to surge ahead with some impressive results in extremely challenging circumstances. Those are just some of the topics that will be addressed in today's webinar, and I'll be addressing you later on with a Q&A with the full panel of guests that we've got today. The webinar is presented by Michell Cole, Senior Marketing Manager at CDK Global, and we're also joined by Richard Robinson, Chief Operating Officer at RTC, and Carol Fairchild, Chief Customer Officer at CitNOW. They will each be discussing a wide range of topics, some of which I've already touched on, but clearly the modern consumer and their demands for customer centricity online in particular, the wider innovation that's taking place across the retail sectors, and just a little bit of advice on how retailers can overcome the challenges that technology is posing right now, with that great period of evolution that we've seen. Right, well, it's time to get underway. I think you'll be glad to hear me stop talking, and I'll pass over to Michell Cole, who will deliver her webinar and get into the meat of the insight. Michell, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everybody. As Tom introduced me, I'm Michelle, and I'm delighted to be here this morning. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at CDK, and I work to ensure that our portfolio is communicated effectively to our customers through the connected experience, and that's why I'm here today. The main theme of today's webinar will be to discuss how you as dealerships can be strengthened by choosing businesses who can integrate their solutions with our DMS. And for us, that's achieved through the International Partner Programme. And I'm delighted today to be joined by two of our industry leading partners, Carol and Richard. And I'll ask them to introduce themselves now, starting with you, Carol, please.
Thanks, Michelle. Great to be here. So my name is Carol Fairchild. I'm Chief Customer Officer at CitNOW. I've been in the automotive industry for about 20 years, but only the last two have been spent at CDK. Nearly said CDK there at CitNOW. Prior to that, I was very much client side, working for Arnold Clark and latterly Lookers in the software development and marketing space.
Thank you. Richard?
Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be joining the webinar today. My name is Richard Robinson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for RTC. I've been working for RTC for 16 years. I've been in automotive for 30 years. Prior to joining RTC, my background is in automotive, in dealerships. I worked in dealership groups, predominantly in the after-sales side of the business. So looking forward to the chat today.
Thank you, Richard, and great to be joined by both of you today. So today's webinar will bring to life our recent white paper, Unlock, Unite, Advance. Some of you will have already read it, and for those of you who haven't, we really encourage you to download it at the end of the session. But it really brings to life the customer experience and how connecting your dealership can bring that to life for your customers also. So we all know the importance of putting the customer at the heart of everything that we do and including them in our strategy plans, but it can be easier said than done. And so it's good to take a step back and look at where the customer experience can go wrong. We know that today automotive retail is much more about selling a vehicle or after sales work. It's about selling a personalized experience based on a precise understanding of those customer needs. But to create that personal digital experience, technology and departments need to be connected to provide that crucial customer data. And if that disconnect occurs, that can be where the customer experience could go wrong. Carol, Richard, I wondered if you had any examples that you could share where you may have seen a lack of connection with your solutions to a DMS, for example, and where that can go wrong in the dealership and therefore for customers.
I think for me, it can cause disruption for customers and dissatisfaction when you see systems that should be working together, or the consumer perceives that they should be working together, but they're not. So, frustrations that I think we've all seen around being put on hold while someone goes and looks in another system or has to check something else can be very frustrating. I think, personal example for me, probably outside of automotive, would be I have a registration with a group of restaurants, and within my profile, it states that I don't have children, yet they keep on sending me marketing material relating to offers for kids-free meals, etc., buy one adult meal. And I guess it kind of makes you feel as if you're not a customer and they don't really know the customer. It makes you feel more like you're just a number and you're just going into that marketing machine. So I think those sort of disconnects for me as a consumer are definitely what cause the frustrations.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I mean, I think my experience would be that the key to trying to streamline that whole kind of integration piece and the whole customer experience there has got to start with the team, the employees, the people that are working within the service departments, within the sales departments, and making sure that their life is made as simple as possible, and by connecting up integrations and making sure that all of the data is available as simply as possible. And I think that that is more difficult than you would imagine, in my experience. And I think it's something that the partner program really will help us all achieve, driving that simplicity and really kind of supporting the frictionless experience for the employee, which will then in turn improve it for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely starts within the dealership. I agree. Okay, so let's move on to today's agenda. So we'll have a look at the modern consumer and how important it is to build that customer-centric model. We know that retail innovation is changing all around us, obviously driven by the pandemic that we've been in at the moment and still going through. And we know then the challenges that a dealership face as a result of that. But then we'll also be talking about how creating a connected experience can solve some of those issues. But before we go into it, let's take a step back and look at where we are today. We promised to not spend too much time talking about the challenges faced by COVID for dealerships. We know that we're all aware of what those are, but there are other challenges faced in our industry, and innovation and consumer centricity are certainly full steam ahead. The wider retail industry focus on delivering a better customer experience. It makes us as consumers expect so much more, which means that to thrive in this new climate, we really must move away from a product-driven model and towards a more customer-centric model. Lack of integration with technology, as we've said here before, can cause that disconnect. And companies that do have a consumer-centric model are using lots of information and accurate data to build an idea of who their customer are to be able to then fulfill their needs. We know that sometimes dealership departments can be siloed, and this disconnecting communication means that dealers again can't access that 360-degree view of the consumer. So let's kick off with a modern consumer and customer centricity. We've shared some stats here on the screen from Capgemini last year that shows us how customers are changing the way that they want to research their purchases and make those purchases. And we know that price is no longer the deciding factor. It sits alongside that retail experience and how you want to be treated as a customer. But Carol, I know that you've undertaken some research of your own recently, and I wondered if you can elaborate on what you think consumers want from their retail experiences.
Yeah, sure. So our research was just at the end of last year, so November, December, we conducted it. And it does conflict ever so slightly with the Capgemini stuff in that we found that price is still the kind of top factor. However, very, very closely followed by building out that kind of personalised experience. And actually the kind of two things when we kind of delve down into what that kind of difference would be. It's as simple as a money back guarantee. And actually the next thing was a personalised video. So you kind of touch Capgemini talking about this online VR or AR side of things. It doesn't need to be as kind of extreme as that. A simple walk around video or personalised video is really all that the customer's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if, and Richard, join us for this, how dealers can start to make those changes from understanding those consumer expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think dealers need to understand that consumers want to engage on their terms, whether that's the time of day or the channels that they use to communicate with us. And I think we need to ensure that we have adaptable solutions to support that. I guess, one of the things that we've seen with self-check-in going live in the middle of last year is by giving customers choice, they've chosen to go down a different path. So, I don't think that's just been driven by the circumstances that we find ourselves in, but I think it is just about giving them different choices depending on what their needs are at any given time. So for me, it'd be similar to what we've seen happen in supermarkets over recent years, where we now have much more choice in terms of how we purchase our groceries within the supermarket. You can do self-checkout, you can do self-scan and pack, you can do click and collect, etc. And I think it's all about giving customers those choices because, again, as we've seen in self-check-in, we've got 55% of customers choosing to use self-check-in as opposed to the traditional check-in at the desk. And that can be driven by whatever's happening in their day. It could be that it's just more convenient to just quickly check in the night before and just have to drop the keys off. So for me, that's important.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Carol, anything to add?
I think just echoing again what Richard said and making sure that that the customer can choose the route that they want, and whatever route that they choose, that you support and enhance that route as much as you possibly can, and treating each customer as an individual. And again, just to kind of nod back to the research that we'd undertaken, it kind of really clearly shows that different age demographics are asking for different things. So what they would feel supported by is so if I take me as an example, so a 40-year-old female, and what I would look for in the buying experience or the after-sales experience is very, very different to what somebody in their 60s or a male in their 40s even would look at. So I think it's important to kind of break it down and look at the different channels that they're following, and also to look at the type of customer that they are and make sure that you have the right experience available to everybody, and that we don't try and force them down the route that would be the simplest for us because we know we're better at converting telephone calls, or we know we're better at converting emails, etc. Just kind of giving the consumer the choice, really.
Absolutely. And I think that's what takes us back to how do we get to that point, which is having a real great understanding of that customer data and what those preferences are, so that we make sure that we communicate with you in the way that you want to be communicated to. Okay, great. So moving on to customer centricity, boosting revenue and can enhance resilience. So understanding what a car buyer truly wants and needs will be the key to winning that sale for a new vehicle or after sales work. And I think industries who are taking this approach are already reaping the rewards. Some research undertaken by Watermark Consultancy said that businesses leading in consumer experience are outperforming those that don't by 80%. And 71% of consumers consider the buying experience when choosing where to shop. So therefore, prioritizing this customer-centric model will lead to success as we evolve in the automotive sector. Carol, I wondered if you could suggest any ideas that will help dealers to understand how they could be more customer-centric and build this into their strategy.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways, and I think talking from kind of past experience before joining CitNOW, one of the kind of real things that I found helpful when we were trying to kind of build out the customer experience when I was at Arnold Clark was making sure that you actually read the data and spend some time. You capture all of this data, whether it's CSI surveys, whether it's live chats, and I think a lot of people just capture it and then don't necessarily act on the verbatim comments or look at the key trends. Is it communication that's the big bugbear? What is it that we're getting marked down on? So spend a bit of time actually going through the amazing data that you capture and understand what you can do differently. The other thing that I would add to that is trying to make sure that you kind of don't bite off more than you can actually chew, and pick the smallest thing and try and deliver it. Because I think quite often you hear businesses go in and saying, oh, we need to run a change program, we need to completely rework our full customer experience. And I think in reality, I do genuinely believe that in the automotive industry, we do care about our customers and we do try and think about them. So it's not necessarily a complete change that's required. It might just be a small change in adding a video in, a personalised video in at the point of inquiry, or it might be a live video session to replace a test drive at the moment because we can't do it. It might be a live video session there to kind of give the customer, put them quite literally in the driving seat and let them see the vehicle and allay any fears that they may have. Just a couple of suggestions.
Yeah, and those things that customers will really value, definitely. Richard, do you have any examples of where you've seen this work particularly well, whether that's in the automotive sector or elsewhere?
I think in terms of putting the customer at the centre of things and designing your internal processes around customer needs, what I've seen recently was looking at the banking industry, where I've noticed that over the last sort of 6 months, we've seen that where in the past you might have ended up with a separate app for your credit card, one for your current account, one for your rewards program, and then maybe your insurance, yet all of those services may be from the same provider. That can be quite frustrating. And I think we've seen a few of the banks working quite hard to consolidate that into a single app experience for consumers, so that everything's in one app, one login, you can do everything you need in that one place. And I think for me, that translates quite nicely to some of the work that we've been trying to do in after sales, predominantly through integrations as well, and creating a seamless process within the dealership through integration that gives you some of those things that Carol has just referenced. You know, those small marginal gains that actually demonstrate there's an improvement here in the process and the experience for the advisor, which actually translates to a better experience for the customer. So I think, you know, trying to consolidate, keep the process simple, I think can add real value to that whole customer experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. And convenience is key. That's what we all want as modern consumers, is that convenience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to retail innovation and dealership challenges. There's a couple of examples here, but I think the Amazon effect is a good one to touch on. So now we shop with Amazon, and now we expect a simple shopping experience. We expect it to be seamless. With Amazon, we've had the luxury of an extensive product range, low prices, free shipping, arrives next day. And so as consumers, we expect that across all of our retail purchases, and especially in some really significant purchases, such as a new car. Richard, I know you've got some views on retail innovation, and I wondered as well, from a survey that AM took last year, as to we know now that everyone is shopping online, but why is it that some dealers, or over 50% of dealers actually, still don't have the capability to sell cars online?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably due to us maybe being caught on the back foot a little bit. I think, you know, as an industry, we know that the way that consumers purchase cars and engage with us to purchase cars has been and continues to change. But we've seen a massive acceleration in that change over the last 12 months. I mean, depending what reports you read, there's been anything between 7 and 10 years of advancement in retail digital processes in the last 12 months. And I think we've gone from a world where, you know, a few years ago, customers would have been in a buying window for a vehicle for probably 60 days or so, you know, from the point, and that buying window, I'm saying, is starting at the point when the customer wakes up and decides I need a new vehicle, to the point where they actually place that order. That would have been a process in the past where the customer would have gone to the dealership, they'd have looked at the cars, they'd have talked to a salesperson, taken a brochure, and there would have been a fairly lengthy journey. Obviously, over the last few years, we've seen a lot of that research element taking place without the knowledge of the dealer, because the consumer is doing that at home, sat on their sofa or sat in a beer garden on their iPhone, just researching cars and deciding what vehicle they want to buy before they actually engage with the dealer. And I think it's that end point now that has really accelerated, that point where the customer actually comes in, they know what they want, they know how much they want to spend, they know normally how much they expect to get for their trade-in vehicle as well. That piece, I think, of the jigsaw is a piece that we felt as an industry we still had time to work on, that piece to place the actual order for the vehicle. But circumstances have meant that that has changed dramatically over the last year. I think the important thing is that I think that survey showing that 50% still are not able to transact online, I would like to think there's been some improvement since that survey was done, because I think there's been a lot of hard work going into that by a lot of dealers. But I do think we have still got almost a grace period and a window of opportunity to adapt and change to support that, because, you know, at the moment there's a period of forgiveness because everybody knows the world's been turned on its head and we're having to do things slightly different. But that won't last that long. So I think we need to try and affect that change now.
Absolutely. Carol, you would agree?
Yes, however, I think I would also add, so I think it's hugely important that people have that option for consumers, absolutely, so they can choose that journey if they want to. But I think if you look at a lot of studies, including ours, it shows that consumers, actually only 50% of them are ready to do the full transaction online. So while there's a lot more people are willing to do that research phase, it's a huge purchase. Buying a car is a really, really big purchase. So only around kind of 40 to 50% of people are actually ready to do that full transaction online. And I think as a kind of ex-retailer, for me, the dealership has absolutely got a place, and it's down to us to make sure that consumers, when we can get our dealerships back open and when we can use tools to kind of streamline that process and build that emotional connection, we absolutely should. And we should want them to come into the dealerships and experience the great coffee and all of these great things that I think we're all desperate to happen again, and give the dealership its place. So yeah, I think I'm surprised that it's still only 50% have actually got the ability to transact online. But as Richard says, I think it's probably changed and will continue to change. But I think consumers aren't quite there yet either. So it's both of us are on that same sort of journey together.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so moving on to what does a fully digitalized dealership look like? Connected technology, as we know, can save valuable time across all areas of the dealership, but it can also lead to having the right data in the right system at the right time during the car buyer's path to purchase and making their experience as smooth as possible. Research from Automotive Management shows that 29% of data held by franchise dealers is incomplete, with the email addresses being the most commonly missed details. So connecting technology and connecting departments to help fill these gaps can be key to having a better view of the customer and then to be able to fulfill their needs. But trying to connect data from multiple sources can be time consuming and very inefficient. And therefore, those dealers who are out there, and I know there are lots of you, who are creating a data-driven culture across areas of their business, are not only enabling themselves to stay one step ahead of the customer's needs, but making sure that their operational areas of the dealership are running as smoothly as possible as well. And Carol, just on the subject of data, I wonder, has the age-old debate been settled in terms of who owns the customer yet?
Yeah, I don't think it, well, my opinion is I don't think it'll ever be settled, to be honest. And I think the only person that truly owns a customer is the customer. And it's down to them to decide who they want to interact with and when they want to interact with them. But yeah, I think it's always going to be a bit of I think even down to in dealerships, and maybe my experience is kind of, hopefully it's changed now, but there would often be an argument between the after sales department and the sales department within a dealership, let alone retailer group to manufacturer. So yeah, let's hope that's changed moving forward in this new driven world.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the connected experience now and the partner program. So within our business, we've identified the challenges that dealers face, and we've developed an open platform that creates a connected experience for car buyers and dealership teams. And our international partner program is truly aligned to our connected experience and helps to further strengthen the platform. Formed by 6 key pillars, the connected experience joins together every dealership function, so from lead management tools in connected marketing to digital solutions in connected systems. And aligned to the partner program, it means that we're able to deliver choice to the dealers, select one of our products on top of the DMS or select partners. But the true value of bringing the customer experience to life is around that integration. And Richard is going to come on and talk to us shortly about how that integration with RTC and our DMS is helping all of our customers. This webinar will actually be followed by a series of webinars which will focus on each of these pillars, and we'll be joined again by specialist partners of our partner program who specialise in these operational areas. And there are gains for every dealership department utilising the connected experience. It can deliver enhanced efficiencies for employees also. And research undertaken by Zendesk shows that employees from an organisation that's experience driven are happier and as a result deliver superior results dealership wide. And ways to help in this area could be modernising applications, developing connected digital workflows. It can help to remove the frustrations then associated with disparate technologies or paper-based activities. And digital transformation can put together all of the customer data at the fingertips of all of our teams, whether that's marketing, sales, IT, which not only means that these teams can deliver a customer-centric approach, but it also means that it helps their daily tasks and enables them to become more efficient. So Richard, I wondered if you could share how integrating your solutions at RTC with our DMS are helping your customers.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've had a long-standing relationship with CDK in terms of integration, but the partner program has allowed us to build on that relationship and to add further value and further benefits. The piece that we've been really focusing hard on is that true digital and paperless experience within the after sales space particularly. I think what we noticed a couple of years ago was that actually a lot of the processes in after sales are very much dependent on this piece of paper that is being moved around the dealership and moved in after sales, and that was the trigger for lots of events happening, and that in itself can create inefficiencies because a person is not being triggered or prompted to do a part of the process until they receive that piece of paper. So by integrating and having a truly digital and paperless solution, it enables tasks to happen at the same time. So you can have a service advisor pricing up labour on a health check at the same time that a parts advisor is adding the parts. You're not waiting for the triggers. But we've seen that has created significant efficiency gains within the after sales department as a whole. And I think, historically in after sales, we've always looked at technician efficiency and utilization, but we've been very focused on actually just the technician element of it. And I think it's really important to be focused on how the advisor can contribute as well and what gains they can make. And we talked earlier about all of those small improvements and marginal gains. And again, one of the things that we've seen through facilitating a self-check-in at the start of this digital process is that actually saves time for advisors. Typically, they're reducing the check-in time down to about 7 minutes. In a typical dealership, that's equating to about 3.5 hours a day saving if you've got 30 jobs coming in a day.
Wow.
And that's something that's time that can be then used better to spend more time with the customer, getting to know the customer, building that relationship with the customer, but also focusing on some of the things you might not have had a chance to do in the past. Like for me, one of the most important things I think is amber follow-up of EVHC work. It's still an area that I think is untapped, and we need to be focused on it. A lot of work goes into capturing the information, but then I think there is more work to do in terms of proactively following that up, and I think that will become particularly important this year when we've seen a drop off in vehicle sales last year, which is going to impact on segment 1 vehicles going into workshops this year. So I think it's really important to look at that.
Absolutely. Carol, anything to add from CitNOW perspective?
I think the addition and the efficiency around using a video check to kind of speed up that approval from the customer. So obviously the key goal's got to be, while the car's on the ramp, the health check gets done, the video goes out to the customer and they approve it before the vehicle needs to move from the ramp. That has to be, I would imagine, everybody's kind of goal. And we know how much more efficient video is in getting that approval from the customer. So I think that's the only thing that I would add in there. And I totally agree with Richard. People, we need to look at efficiencies, and we need to look at how those efficiencies can then have a positive impact on consumers. And and I think kind of using video, the latest research has kind of shown that 85% of people who receive that video and say has a positive impact in their experience.
Great, thank you for sharing that. So moving on to the partner program in the UK. So this shows the ecosystem of our partner program and how they can complement the DMS. And also within different departments of the dealership. So all of those partners that you can see above the connected banners are those who are live with us today for those specific areas. And those below the banners are the ones who are in certification with us at the moment. And what's great is that we have a lot more partners coming through to support with some of our other portfolios, such as systems, parts and marketing. So we opened the webinar by talking about where the customer experience can go wrong, and we've discussed lots of challenges faced today by you as dealers. We know that our industry is experiencing pressure to keep up as retail innovation continues to increase our consumer expectations. But by connecting those departments, connecting the technology and the sites, you can create a leading consumer experience and a higher level of employee satisfaction. The connected experience brings lots of benefits to dealers, such as improved consumer understanding that we've talked about today, can accelerate profitability, can increase loyalty, in fact. And I know that Thanks did some research recently that talked about how devoted customers are 67% more likely to return to buy products and services than go with a new one. And you'll read the quote on the screen from LSH Auto, very established dealer group in the UK, who've worked really closely with us. And it's great to see, and our partners, and it's great to see the power of connecting those partner solutions to our DMS and the benefit that it's had to their dealerships and ultimately their customers. Carol and Richard, I wondered if you could give us a couple of suggestions in terms of your sort of top 2 suggestions for how dealers can truly build a connected dealership. Carol, I'll start with you.
So I think the first thing to remember is that customers spend a considerable amount more time interacting with the after sales space within a dealership. So there's a McKinsey research study that shows that it's around 50 hours is spent within the kind of after sales experience, but only 15 hours is spent within the sales environment. And I think when you're looking at things, is make sure that you've got that holistic approach and you're looking at your whole dealership and how the customer is interacting from the servicing experience through to the sales experience, and how you're joining those journeys, and as I say, a whole cycle of process, and identify each point, look at how you can simplify the process, look at how you can remove any friction, but just do little things. So continuous improvement, don't try and eat the elephant, don't try and kind of do too much. Just pick one thing that's the biggest pain point and try and resolve that before you move on to the next thing.
Thanks, Carol. Richard, what would your views be?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's really about embracing the solutions that are going to add benefit to you as a dealer, but also give more flexibility in terms of the consumer's journey with you. And Carol talked earlier about ensuring that customers have a choice around how they engage with you and what path they choose to go down. And we don't want to force customers down a prescribed path. So I think making sure that all of the solutions that you take on board allow you to do that, as well as bringing benefits to the dealership. I think those systems need to complement each other and integrate well to create those efficiency gains that we talked about. I think that's really important. One of the things that's been at the heart of our business really from the outset is to eliminate the need for double keying and having to have multiple systems open, because that has a significant impact when we then look at things like data. And we talked earlier about not having email addresses. Well, I suspect that in a lot of dealerships, we have got an email address for a customer somewhere, but have we got it across the board? So have after sales got the email address that was captured at the point of sale? I think, sometimes disconnected systems and processes can mean that actually the customer has given us that information, but we're just not sharing it effectively and using that data effectively. So I think that is really important. And again, that kind of goes back to my point at the beginning of the webinar, really around my personal experience with the restaurant, really not really knowing me. I think, that's an example of where I think we can cause a bit of frustration for consumers. If they think, well, I gave you my email address when I bought the car because you sent me all the information on the car. Now I'm an after sales customer. You don't seem to have that information. And I know there are many dealers out there that work really hard to prevent that. But I think as systems providers as well, we have a job to do in terms of supporting the dealers with those integrations and creating those seamless workflows and the ability to share that data well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think everything that we've talked about today really just starts with the customer, but to start with the customer and fulfill what the customer wants and deliver that personalized experience from that restaurant example that you gave starts with that data and understanding the data. And with such a gap potentially of missing data can lead to that disconnect in customer experience. But I think to be able to do that does start with connecting your departments, connecting your technology, and of course having more of a seamless operation through your for your dealership is great for employees too, and then gives them the opportunity to be truly customer centric. Thank you for those examples. I think that's a really great wrap up of some great insight and examples there. So I'll hand over to you, Tom. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks for that, Michelle. So some really good insight, I think, from Michelle, Carol, and Richard there, and probably reflecting an awful lot of conversations and headaches that have been experienced in dealerships across the UK over the last 10 months as this digitalization agenda really took hold for real and in a serious fashion. So thanks for that, guys. I have to remind all attendees that you are able to address the team in the Q&A section down the side of your screen. So please do feel free to ask a few questions if there's anything on your mind that you'd like to see addressed, or any advice that you'd perhaps like to gain for your individual business. We have had some questions come in already, thankfully, which makes my Q&A duties a lot more easy today. And I'll go straight to the first of these, which is coming from Steve Dean, and I think reflecting on a point made by Richard quite early on in the presentation. Steve says that Richard's point about self-checking is very powerful, saying that we need to put our software in the hands of consumers and not just dealer staff. What does the panel think, and will this change the current landscape for software providers in the industry? So I guess, Richard, you're probably the best person to start on that, but I will come back to Carol and Michelle as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Steve's absolutely right. I think we do need to be putting software in the hands of the consumers. Consumers expect to almost be able to self-serve more now because of the experiences that we've seen with, the Amazon effect, the supermarket an analogy that I talked about earlier. So I think definitely for us over the last few years, we've had to adapt and pivot in terms of our approach to software, because previously we had been very focused on dealer processes, dealer software that was used by members of the team working in the businesses. As we've evolved and those products have needed to be more consumer facing, that's presented different challenges in terms of making our software more customer facing from an online service booking point of view. And more customers want to just be able to book in online now without actually having to take time out of the day to phone up the dealership. We live in a world where we are time poor, and people are very busy. Very often people think to themselves, I need to book the car in for a service, but actually between 9 and 5 we're all busy doing our day jobs, and then you get to the evening and think, actually I didn't book the car in, I don't want to wait till tomorrow to phone up. You don't have to do that now. You can use online service booking, but I think more and more of those solutions will be consumer facing. And again, self check-in is another example of that, where we've kind of empowered the customer with that check-in process. The next step is to empower the customer with the check-out process. And again, it comes back to that whole giving the customer choice around how they want to interact with the dealer, because as we've said many times this morning, there is no one size fits all. And consumers need to change. It might be that one day I do want to go in and actually sit down and talk to someone about the problem on my car and hand over my keys and really explain it. Other times I might want to do self-check-in the night before, drop the car off in the morning, keys through a secured drop box, because I've got to get on my way in the morning and do the job. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would echo that. I think the pandemic has thrown us into a situation where we have to allow that more self-serve to the customer. And I think it's also important to remember that there are different demographics. So there are people who really enjoy that convenience of self-serve, feel safer by doing that. But also there are demographics who might not be so au fait with some of those digital solutions that can aid that. So I think, going back to Richard's point, that is about really understanding the customer and making sure that you're equipped to deal with all demographics of customers.
I think the only thing that I would add is that I think when we build software, we often think of, well, we've got our back end systems that the staff use, and then we've got our front end systems that the consumers use. And I think the one thing that I would challenge is that, well, why is there two different systems? Why can't it just be one seamless system that the consumer logs into and the service advisor may log into, or the technician may log into? And I think if we could get to the holy grail of that, it really, really does solve the kind of age-old problem of data kind of moving from one place to another. And I think it's something that we all need to kind of really think about when we're building new things and we're looking at the processes. Just trying to, just because you're an employee doesn't mean to say that you need to use an old-fashioned UI. You should be using something that looks as beautiful as it should for a consumer. So I think that's probably the only thing I add, but I concur with what Michelle and Richard said.
I'm sure lots of retail group staff will be punching the air at that suggestion, or something attractive and user friendly to get the teeth into. There are other questions coming in, and Paul here makes quite a good point, really. I guess in terms of the retail sector as a whole, everyone's becoming very au fait with using apps, and I guess it'd be a great retention tool if you've got a dealer group's app on your phone. You would perhaps return to it time and time again. So I'll let you scrabble over this amongst yourselves, because I don't know who to address it to, really. But do you think an app is a good window for consumers in car retail to really engage with dealers?
Oh, I was going to say.
Sorry, that's my fault. Go ahead, Carol. Let's start with you.
Yes, I do think an app has definitely got its place, and I think you come back into the question that Michelle had asked me earlier around who owns the customer, and I think that's where you get. So every manufacturer has an app. They've got their version of whatever the app should look like, where their dream is that you can book your vehicle in online, you can kind of do all of your updates and things like that. But equally, having worked for dealer groups for 20 years, I know that their aspiration is that the customer would absolutely be using their app. And I think if I turn that to us as a kind of set of suppliers, is making sure that if dealer groups are going to build those apps, or manufacturers are building those apps, that we are making our data available and our products available through an API suite, similar to what CDK are doing from the partner program, that you can embed everything you would possibly want about that customer journey within your app, and it's down to us suppliers to facilitate that process by making our systems as easy to use as possible and easy to plug in with APIs and things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do agree with a lot of what Carol said. It is a challenge because everybody's competing for that real estate on people's devices. That's valuable real estate for the consumers, and we all have apps that we have on our front page that we use every day, and then we have the ones that kind of drop down onto page 2, 3, and the ones that kind of eventually just disappear. And I think the important thing is that, again, as Carol alluded to, if you have an app, it's got to be meaningful. It's got to have all of the systems integrated to give the consumer the most amount of benefit, because I think we've probably all downloaded an app from a brand when we're researching a car, and you use that app for that buying window, and then it kind of becomes redundant, and it's probably something you end up just deleting. Whereas actually it should be more of a brand or dealer-based app that I feel I want to go into and use all the time. So I use it for my online service booking. I use it to get tips on winter driving, for example. I use it to find out more information about other services that the dealer can offer. So I think that's the important thing with apps, is that they've got to be meaningful enough that the consumer wants to keep it on page 1 of their iPhone or whatever device they're using, and they want to keep on using it, because otherwise I think some of these can be a bit short-lived.
Yeah, not an easy fix. Michelle, I guess a lot of the work that CDK is doing really feeds into everything that might make that app a possibility for a car retailer. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, and I think apps are great enablers for that customer experience. I think to Richard's point, it's crucial then that all of the information is in one place and is accurate. I can get frustrated as a consumer using an app myself if I've got to come out of the app to go into their homepage to find out more information. So it is really key that it's one that aids convenience. It's got everything in one place that I'm always referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's not an easy thing to take on, that as you've all sort of acknowledged. It has to be something with real appeal for people to go back to. So definitely another headache for people to tackle in future.
An exciting one.
Yeah, maybe, Michelle, and huge potential, of course. The questions still coming in from the audience. Thank you for those. I guess working along similar lines, really, Brett says that the reason Amazon and supermarkets work well is due to the customer account area being the view on for the consumer. With ITP preventing third-party tracking without specific consent on those browsers over 7 days, surely an account area for the consumer is now a key part of any CRM or DMS. To buy a car is not a single website visit, it's a multi-visit and a multi-screen. So again, without this area, how do you plan to keep that journey flowing? I hope you've taken that all in. I think you might have sight of it as well if you want to reread it. But I guess, again, yeah, it's bringing together those disparate parts in one solution for the consumer, is it? I guess, Michelle, we'll start with you.
Yeah, and I guess from a DMS point of view, and that's where the connected experience has been born. It's about, we have a great DMS and we've got great solutions to layer on top of that to help you optimize areas of the dealership. But actually, we've also got a plethora of great partner solutions, and by giving dealers that choice to choose our layered application that integrates the DMS or that of a partner, we've got great RTC and CitNOW with us today and a number of others. It then enables the dealers that choice so that they've got everything in one place. It's that ecosystem that we really want to achieve.
Absolutely. Would you agree with that, Richard? I see you nodding your head there.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think it is a real challenge here to keep that journey flowing, as Brett has asked, around with a lack of a customer account, because you do really need that customer account at the heart of it, because I can imagine it does get very frustrating for customers when you're switching from device to device and looking for a vehicle. And again, it comes back to that point earlier around, knowing the customer and being able to tailor what the customer is seeing to what they actually want. So, if a customer is looking for a 5-door hatchback and they prefer black and red, that's what you want to show them. And the way to do that is absolutely through capturing as much information as you can. And, a single customer account, I think probably is quite important, and probably something that we do need to try and look at. But it does become challenging with all of the restrictions around tracking and that Brett's alluded to. But yeah, I think it's a great point, and definitely something that needs to be considered a bit more, maybe.
Is that account something that you've come across, Carol? Would see it now. Clearly, you guys tend to send out, the dealers send out CitNOW videos via email or SMS or different platforms. But are you seeing that videos sometimes uploaded onto a customer portal? Is that something that's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple of integrations with a few manufacturers at the moment, where the video would be uploaded into their account and the customer would go on there to view the video. And I think there's definitely more conversations along that kind of going. And Richard mentioned it earlier, it's the age of making it. I think for me, my personal opinion is that the account comes first and then maybe an app comes beyond that. I think Brett makes a really, really good point. That I think it is needed. We need that customer account thing. And we really need to look as an industry out to all of these other industries out there that do it so well, like supermarkets and like Amazon, and make sure that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and really just kind of getting everybody to work together. And I think that's the key thing, that I think there has been a step change in the industry and all of the suppliers trying to work better together that we've never really had before. And I think let's just kind of attack it straight on. 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't have been able to get the three of us in a room together to talk about how best to make the systems work as seamlessly as possible. And I think the key kind of change that I definitely want to kind of just put out there is we want to work with our customers. All of us want to work with our customers to make sure that they can put the systems in place that they want to put in place, and do that together to help them.
Absolutely, yeah. I couldn't agree more.
I thought you might agree with that, Michelle.
Yep.
We are already running over, but I think that the debate seems to be gaining quite a bit of traction amongst attendees, hopefully who are getting what they tuned in for. Another question from an attendee, Graham, asks, in terms of an online journey, do you see end-to-end finance as part of this? I think the answer will be yes. But if so, do you think finance rates should be tailored to a customer as they are in online banking? There's an interesting integration that perhaps we'd not thought about. I'll open that up and see who pipes up first.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view,
Richard.
I think, I think finance is absolutely part of the journey. Definitely, consumers have the ability right here, right now, to go online, research a car, get a valuation on their vehicle. They can search finance. Most of the manufacturers and dealer groups are presenting finance. So those tools are out there at the moment, and I do think that probably one of the missing pieces is tailoring those finance rates to the individual. And again, that kind of comes back to the knowing the customer piece. I think it will potentially create better opportunities. So I can only see that would be beneficial, because it will stop, to a degree, the consumer perhaps stepping outside of that dealer journey and going and looking at a finance provider outside of that through their bank or whatever, where they may get a preferential rate. And actually the dealership and brand financing, is normally pretty competitive. It has to be these days. So, you know, I think that we're almost steering customers to go outside of that by not tailoring it. So I do think it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as part of our partner program, that's something that we're looking at the moment, whether that's internally to CDK around that e-commerce journey from start to finish, and using our partner program as well to bring that in to enable dealers to integrate those solutions to the DMS to offer that seamless end-to-end experience.
And I think that the only thing that I would add to that is that one of the things that we're really kind of working hard on is making sure, so we over 1 million people will see one of our video presentation pages a month, and we wanted to make sure that when the customer's on that channel, they can have a next step, and one of those will be integrations with Vivendi and Codeweavers. And I think that the only thing that I would say is that I'll leave the FCA piece to those guys and to people that are willing to kind of understand all of that, because I'm quite glad to be able to put that mantle down, having moved out of the retail automotive space.
And Tom, it's just worth mentioning as well on the Q&A follow-up, we can delve into more. We can delve into this more, particularly around the e-commerce work that we're working on.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And I guess, you know, as I said before, we are running over, so I'm looking to wrap this up now, guys. But I guess a question from myself, really, quick answer from each of you. There's been huge acceleration of digital evolution over the last 10 months. We've got a vaccination rollout well underway to combat COVID. By, say, the end of 21, do you guys envisage that a large number of consumers are going to continue with this online journey? Clearly, the omnichannel process has become embedded now and is something people expect. But how many people do you guys foresee returning to the dealership and expecting part of this journey? What's the makeup going to be? I guess I'll start with you, Michelle.
Yeah, so I think I couldn't give you a number, but I think that it's changed everyone's attitudes from all different demographics as well. So I know that people who weren't too sure on online shopping before are probably really quite au fait with it now, so have more confidence in transacting online. So I think that there will be certainly a mix, but I definitely think there'll be more of a shift towards that online journey. And so what we need to do to enable our dealers is to integrate that technology to allow them to do that using the partner program.
Okay, great stuff. And Carol, what do you foresee as the scale of digital engagement with consumers going forward?
I think I agree exactly with Michelle, to be honest. I mean, it's, as I mentioned earlier, people are doing a lot of the journey online. They are still doing the actual transaction. A lot of them, that's still happening in the dealership or outside the dealership or however that happens. And I think in after sales world, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but I think we've still got quite a long way to go to make sure that is a seamless journey from kind of booking online and things like that. So I think when we come out of this, I think it will probably drop back from where we are just now a little bit, but I think that we're all in a much better place to kind of drive that forward moving in the future. But making sure that the consumer, sorry, I'm sounding like a broken record, the consumer can absolutely pick the parts of that journey that they want to do online or offline. And as Brett mentioned earlier with one of his questions, it's making sure that we can join that journey up as seamlessly as possible.
You'd agree with that, Richard? I can see you nodding there.
Yes, yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, as Carol says, yeah, it comes back to giving the consumer choice in terms of how they want to interact with us. And I think whilst, we have seen a significant change in people being forced almost to embrace online shopping and transacting for things that they perhaps wouldn't have done in the past, and different demographics of people transacting online that perhaps hadn't thought about doing it in the past, but because it's been the only route for them, that they've now had to, and they've embraced it. And I think, in some respects, people won't go back either. I think there will be an expectation that actually they do expect a digital journey. They do expect to be able to transact online and engage online. But again, as Carol says, I think there will be an element of some will shift back, because there will still be customers that will still want to go into the dealership, will want that face-to-face. But I do completely agree. There's quite a bit of work still to do in the after sales side of things as well, in terms of joining up that journey.
Excellent, guys. I think we'll wrap it up there. We've gone over. I think we've addressed some really good subject matter, and hopefully given a bit of insight that will have educated attendees, or at least provoked a bit of thought and a bit of direction for their future strategies. So thank you, guys. I have to remind everyone who's listened in today that CDK Global's Unlock Unite Advanced White Paper is available to download. So for a bit more insight into all of what we've discussed today, it's worth visiting the CDK website and taking advantage of that. But again, thank you for everyone who attended, and Richard, Carol, and of course, Michelle, thanks ever so much for your input today. That's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.